You know, the annoying thing about making coffee on YouTube is I feel like you're always being judged. The other annoying thing is that I have a small puppy. Come say hey, show him how crazy you are. Say, I'm 15 weeks old and I haven't learned how to behave at all. I'm adorable, but I can't behave. All right, I'm not. See if I can try to find her toy. All right, I gave her a chew toy. It's the second one of the day, so hopefully it doesn't bite me in the tuchus. Today, though, is very, very cold. But more importantly, today is also new camera day. Now, I recently bought an iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I thought that the 3 lenses and the 4K 120 and all that stuff would just like totally hook me up. I would have all the extra camera capability that I needed in addition to this camera, which is the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. Buying the new iPhone had a bit of a knock-on effect. And that knock-on effect would be that as much as I love the fact that the iPhone shoots 4K 120 log on a wide, a normal, and a tele lens, you have too much depth of field. I mean, what the heck am I going to do with this nearly infinite depth of field? And if you are shooting footage that has a big scene where you don't expect to see any depth of field in a professional looking video, the iPhone looks amazing. If you're shooting something up close, and I like to shoot a lot of B-roll, the iPhone will leave you feeling a little empty. I mean, I guess it would be good for really tight shots, like if you want to do a B-roll shot of a watch or some kind of product shot. But if you're doing something like a motorcycle, and that's what my other channel is about, it's motorcycle related content, the old iPhone is just not so hot. So one day Apple will figure out how to generate some sort of artificial but convincing depth of field in the iPhone format when shooting video. But right now, y'all, we're stuck with this nearly infinite depth of field from the iPhone. And I'm not complaining. I mean, it's an amazing piece of kit for what it is. You have to appreciate what they've accomplished in something that you're going to have with you all the time. And I'm very, very, very thankful. But I needed more. Now, I grew up shooting medium format and full frame type cameras, and this is obviously for still photos. And so I've always grown accustomed to having some clear separation between my subject and the subject's context. I was never a shoot F8 and be there kind of press photographer, kind of shooter. I was more of the, I want to show off how fat my aperture is kind of guy. Now, when it comes to video, I don't see the need to smash my background completely out of focus. I want y'all to know kind of what's going on. I mean, why would I want to use a full frame camera in video and just obliterate everything that's going on around me? Look, you can make a lot of pretty B-roll type shots with a full frame camera where you intentionally want to smash the background. You know, this time of year, and it's near Christmas, you get all those pretty Christmas lights and they get the big orbs and the floaty things and all that. But y'all, it's just not my cup of tea. So I needed something that was small enough to carry with me on the motorcycle, but would give me professional results. And it turned out that Micro Four Thirds seemed to be the sweet spot. Panasonic makes a couple of really nice cameras, at least at the time of this video, and that would be the GH7 and the G9 Mark II. Both of those cameras would do what I needed them to do. However, the G9 Mark II was a little bit cheaper and omitted a couple of things that I didn't really need, primarily active cooling and ProRes RAW. I'm not going to be shooting ProRes RAW for a YouTube channel. Any kind of ProRes or frankly any kind of footage in log would be fine with me. So while I was shooting this, as luck would have it, FedEx delivered my brand new Micro Four Thirds camera from B&H Photo. They do not sponsor me, obviously, but yeah, it's here. So let's get into it. Literally. You want to say, hey, little nut, to all the people that you're going to interrupt while I make this video? Getting kind of cold anyway. Yeah. So here we have it. And I don't have a knife. exciting times. I don't get a new camera every day, although it feels that way sometimes. Usually it's been action cameras and those kinds of things. I haven't bought a DSLR in at least 5 years, and even when I did, it was an existing system. So it was another Nikon, for example. This is the first time I bought a new camera system. Oh gosh, I can't remember, probably 15 years. Ooh, exciting stuff. And the dog. So I also bought 2 lenses from B&H and another one from somebody else. I wanted to replicate the wide normal tele setup that the iPhone has. I mean, that is the traditional setup that I've always shot photos with, is a trio of primes. So I picked up the 9mm from Panasonic. This is their collaboration with Leica or however the hell you say that. And the idea there was that it would be wide enough to vlog with. This would be something I would carry around on the camera and do the vlog first person thing. And I also picked up the 42.5 short tele lens. The idea being that this would give me my compressed shots of the motorcycle while I'm doing B-roll shots, or perhaps I want to pull back and throw something out of focus and whatnot, but this would give me my ability to do compressed type perspectives. The other lens that I don't have today that's coming from another vendor is the Panasonic 25 f1.4, also in collaboration with Leica, and that's going to give me the normal perspective. Now I think when I'm doing shots where I'm talking in front of the motorcycle, that'll be the lens that I use for my tripod type shots. And I'm used to shooting in a normal perspective anyway, and I'll likely use that lens with the camera to do some still work as well. So much stuff on the table. That is a little chunkier than I thought it would be. What do you think? Does that look a little chunkier than you would think a micro four thirds camera would be? I think this is actually about as big as my Z6, actually. Feels nice in the hand. This control is nicely placed. Let's set this aside and take a look at the lenses. Lens hood, pouch. I never use these damn things. I end up just like chucking them in a box, and then if I sell the lens, I end up just putting them in the box with the lens when I sell it. I always just end up using the camera case for my lenses. I guess you might use those if you're throwing your lenses in a fanny pack or something, but I don't know. I don't know anybody that uses them. Do you use these? I don't use them. So that is the 42.5, and if you've ever shot a full frame tele lens, that is incredibly compact. Wow. Now there's your savings on your size. Yeah. It looks a little odd though. A little stubby, little fella, a little smaller than I expected. It's kind of funny looking, but it's very compact. I mean, this will easily fit in the tail pack of my motorcycle. Interestingly enough, and now I'm getting a real mess here on the table, the 9mm is bigger than the 42.5, and they both have the same aperture. I guess that's not entirely unexpected, but that's odd. It's still very compact though. I haven't had a good fast wide or large aperture wide angle on a full frame in a while, but I remember them being incredibly bulky. So for example, the 24 f1.4 on the Canons and the Nikons, as well as the 28 f1.4s, incredibly bulky. This is equivalent to a 18mm on a full frame. It's 9mm here, so I think you use a 2x multiple. and it's f1.7. Now again, your depth of field is going to be greater than on full frame just because the sensor is smaller, but still should be a lot more dramatic than say a 1-inch sensor like the Pocket 3 with a similar field of view. Let's charge it up. Okay, so I was about to charge this up and I'm like, what is this other thing in the pack? And it looks like when I called the sales guy at B&H, they didn't order the exact camera that I asked for. It is a G9 Mark II, yeah. But they included the kit lens, which I specifically did not want. Not sure what to say about that. Probably spent more money than I needed to, but maybe I can hawk this on eBay. I really don't feel like sending it back, but we'll give it a shot and we'll have something to compare these other prime lenses to, so I guess it's not all bad. Anyway, gonna charge it up now. All right, the G9 Mark II is all charged up and I've had a shower and the house is warmed up, so the beanie is off. And yeah, I just wanted to compare this briefly to my Z6. So this is the portrait lens, the 42.5 on the G9 Mark II, and this is at 85 f1.8 on the Nikon. It's pretty remarkable. I think you can see why I do not want to carry this. And I'll have to put the weight up on the screen, but this feels about 3 times heavier than this, and it's mostly the lens. Now this is a Chinese lens. It's a Viltrox, is that how you pronounce it? Not the sharpest portrait lens either, and I have a feeling that this one is going to look better in terms of resolution wide open than this one. Obviously, this one is going to clobber this one if you want to smash the background out of focus, but that is not why I bought a Micro Four Thirds. I want to use this for video. So without further ado, I'm going to get outside and walk about for a minute and test this sucker out. See ya. All right, so starting out this test using the Panasonic 9mm f1.7 lens. This is a great perspective for vlogging. I can already see on the screen how nice the perspective is. However, I'm very concerned about wobbles. There's no stabilization built into this lens. I do have the in-camera stabilization enabled. I think I have the video boost mode or whatever it is turned on. In addition to seeing how this lens looks though, I'm real curious how this audio setup sounds. Hopefully I have it set up correctly. I've not used this Rode mic setup very much. I bought it with the intention of using it with an action camera setup on a motorcycle helmet, but it was just far too prone to failure. Too many things to turn on and cables to check and all that kind of garbage. So ended up using the DJI Mic 2 setup when it came out with the DJI cameras, and I ditched all my GoPro crap and never looked back. The one thing I will say about this setup though that I'm running right here is it's heavy. Compared to the OP3, my arm is out of shape. And yeah, it's kind of got my shoulder burning. I'm sure I'll get used to it, but I don't do a lot of vlogging walking around anyway. I would likely be using this lens primarily in a setting where I'm standing still, trying to show you guys something. Or maybe sitting, you know, at a picnic table or in front of a motorcycle talking about it. So the wobble thing is not a huge concern of mine, but I'm curious. I'm also curious how it compares to the kit lens, which I'll try next. The kit lens is a lot more narrow. It's 12mm versus 9, but it has stabilization built into the lens, so you get basically stabilization in both the lens and the body, as most of y'all know. And I want to know how that compares to a gimbal. I do think 12mm though will be too narrow to get the field of view that I like, and I really like this one. It's very similar to what I see when I use my OP3. Exposure looks pretty good through here. You do have a histogram on the screen, which is super nice, where you don't have any way of really knowing with the OP3 how hot your exposure is getting. You just kind of set it up and pray. Or you can stare at your phone if you want to mount it out to the side of the camera, which really makes that setup a lot less
elegant. Also, shooting in this mixed lighting, I'm curious how the color balance is going to look. That's less to do with the camera, but just something I'm not very experienced with. Usually I shoot outside and it's either sunny or it's cloudy, and here I am walking through the woods and coming in and out of the light. All right, with all that said, I want to get back to the truck and put the kit lens on. See y'all there. All right, so now we're shooting with the kit lens. This is the 12 to 60 millimeter, racked all the way out to 12 millimeters. It's a slower lens. Obviously it's not f1.7. I think the maximum aperture is f3.5. So I've actually opened the exposure up a little bit. I don't think that'll make any material difference in the way the footage looks in terms of lack of motion blur. Still pretty fast shutter speed. But I want to let that ISO kind of ride down a little bit and not be bumping up too high. How do the wobbles or lack of look now? Let me know in the comments which one y'all think looks better in terms of wobbles. And when I refer to wobbles, I'm talking about the corners of the frame. I'm also curious how the focus tracking is doing. We'll get up here to the same bridge and we'll pan around. We'll go back to the truck and get the Osmo Pocket 3 and do the same walk with that as a reference. How does it look? I don't think I'll be doing a lot of walking, vlogging type stuff. This isn't really my thing, but I was just curious how it would go. I'll more than likely be using this camera in a tabletop kind of scenario, or standing and talking about something where the wobbles aren't as big of a deal, which kind of makes me regret buying that 9mm. Maybe I should have got the 15. Or maybe this kit lens that I didn't know I was going to get is good enough. Although I would like something a little faster, get a little more background separation to make this whole thing worth it when compared to the OP3. So let's try the OP3. Okay, using the OP3, hopefully face track doesn't keep popping on. I'd like to not have the gimbal jerking around trying to track my face. I'm also curious how the sound is going to compare with this mic 2 setup compared to the Rode setup. I've not used the Rode setup very much. Don't know if it's really any better. Let me nudge the gimbal a smidge there. There we go. You know, I thought you need the wide angle lens adapter with this camera when you vlog, but I really don't think so. Looks like the field of view is good enough for me. The thing I don't like about the wide angle lens is it makes everything look a little bit wonky. It has a lot of barrel distortion, and I really struggle to dial that out. It's kind of tough to dial out. One of the downsides of this setup, and I think I'm seeing it right now, is the exposure. You have no way of knowing what the exposure is unless you use the app on the phone. And it looks like it's a little bit hot. Let's see if I can get my phone out and check the exposure for a second. I'd like to have usable footage when this is over. Okay, y'all, so I had to stop and adjust the exposure on the Osmo Pocket 3. I brought the exposure down 2/3 a stop, and it's probably too dark when I'm backlit like this. The problem is when I turn around and face the sun, or the sun pops in and catches me on the side, it's too hot. Now, it'll be interesting to see how that compares to the exposure on the G9 II. And this is really probably one of my two top nitpicks with this camera. I love the Pocket 3 because it's so easy to whip it out and get your audio going, get decent color. There's no wobbly stuff in the footage. You get a little bit of background separation, not a lot with a 1-inch sensor. But the lack of exposure modes, the lack of the ability to really center weight it is a real struggle for me. And I don't want to make this video too much about the OP3. I just really wanted to compare it as a reference, since it's the camera I'm most familiar with, to the G9 Mark II. Again, to see if all of this is really worth it. All the trouble of using a mirrorless is really worth it for vlogging and YouTube video production. This is a lot easier on the arm. My shoulder is a little warm right now, but it's not burning. It was straight up burning a minute ago. I'm just more than likely out of shape. This is also a little less conspicuous. You still look like a bit of a goober walking around out here when you walk by people with a camera and you're talking to nobody. But, you know, for some reason, I feel better with this. Couldn't tell you why. All right, with that done, y'all, I'm gonna get back to the house and look at the footage and we'll see what I think. Man, that sun is really bright.
All right, so I bought the camera, I've unboxed the camera with y'all, I've done some basic walkabout test with the camera, and I wanna share my thoughts. Now, I know that I'm in the honeymoon phase, and I know how tempting it is to validate something you've done or spent money on, and try to tell people that this is the reason that's better or the best for you or for somebody else, especially when you're in that phase. I don't want to do that. I'm trying to be as objective as possible. And the whole point of buying this camera, just to kind of reframe this again, is I wanted something that had more capability than my Osmo Pocket 3. So is it worth it? Let's find out. I'm going to start by talking about the 9mm lens on the G9 Mark II and what I thought about it. First off, the lens is crazy sharp. It might be a little bit too sharp. I might need to run a mist filter if I'm not running an ND filter on it. If I'm running an ND filter, then I'll likely deal with the sharpness in post by trying to just soften it just a smidge. Just showed too many of my 50-year-old imperfections, and there's plenty of those. I do love the f1.7 aperture. It gave a nice subtle separation between me, the subject, and the environment that I was in, and it gave it, you know, a pro look that was more significant than this. This is still really nice, but doesn't give you as much of that background separation as the 9mm f1.7 lens on the G9 Mark II. Let's see, the focus did really well. No complaints about any of that. I do want to talk about the wobbles. I didn't see any. Now, I don't know if that's because the environment I was in, you couldn't see enough vertical lines, you know, far off in the background. I thought the trees would wobble some, but I didn't notice it. So I was very pleased about that. And I'm gonna try to figure out what happened, because I want to figure out how to induce them and also how to avoid them. So perhaps I could continue to not use a gimbal when using the G9 Mark II. And lastly, I want to talk about the purple blob issue. I did notice that when the sun was over my shoulder, there was a purple blob that showed up for a moment. It seems to be a very specific point in the frame where you have a very strong highlight about here in this kind of perimeter. And I did a little bit of research, and this is a thing, I think, with some wide angle lenses in the G9, or rather the whole Micro Four Thirds system. If you're shooting professionally, I can see how this could be a problem. I'm obviously not shooting for anybody else, especially with a 9mm lens, so no big deal to me. I'll just try to avoid it best I can, and I don't feel like the blob ruined the footage anyway. For what I was shooting, it was totally okay. Next, I want to talk about the kit lens. First off, I only tested it at the widest objective, which is 12mm, and I thought that 12mm for walking about with the G9 Mark II was just too close. My head is like always in the top of the frame. I can't get my arm any further out comfortably to give me more space in the frame, and so I just feel like it's too tight. I do feel like the footage might have looked a little bit smoother considering I was running stabilization both in the camera body and in the lens, but it's really hard to say when the lens is cropped in that much. I'll do some more testing with the kit lens in other scenarios, but I just feel like for walking about and doing vlogging, 12 millimeters is just too close. I know some people have suggested the 15 millimeter lens from Panasonic is a great vlogging lens. I don't see how y'all do it. I just want more space around my head. Maybe it's just me. What do y'all think? So in summary, would I buy the G9 Mark II camera again? I think the answer is going to be yes. This kind of thing is fantastic because it's limited and it's elegant and it does some very specific things very, very well. And it does a lot. I mean, it does, it does photos, but I don't think this is a great idea for shooting photos. But it does, slow motion video very, very well. It does regular, video and face tracking very, very well. It has, the ability to receive audio from their native mic system, 2 mics at a time, which is awesome for doing kind of podcast one-on-one type things. It can do motion lapses and time lapses and all kinds of fun things. It's a fantastic piece of kit. But again, it's limited in terms of the ability to control exposure. The autofocus performance isn't the best, et cetera, et cetera. I'll do a video about things I would love to see updated or changed on the successor to this camera. But again, that's another video for another time. Something like the G9 Mark II, or any other mirrorless camera for that matter, is not really designed to be this elegant. It's designed to be flexible, and therefore it requires that I learn more about how to use the camera system. And if you're going to do something like this, that is something you'd have to learn as well to really take advantage of it. Now, you could just blindly follow somebody's settings on YouTube, and you may wonder why you don't get the same results as other people, and it's because you don't understand what's going on. So with a mirrorless setup, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. The thresholds and the potential are much, much higher than something like this. However, you got to put in the work to get the result. So that's it, y'all. I really love what I'm seeing from the G9 Mark II, and I'm filming this closing segment on the camera. I chose to use it rather than this, which is what I used to open this video with. I think that pretty much says it all. I can't wait to explore it more, and I'll see y'all again sometime soon. Peace.